Praise the Lord, everyone. Amen. Thank you all for joining our Knights of the Round Table here at the Lighthouse Church. And we have the dubious pleasure of having some of the brothers here from the Lighthouse participate in our racism discussion. And all of these brothers come from different backgrounds, and we're so grateful to God that they have taken out time in their busy schedule to come and have this cathartic conversation. As a way for you all to understand what we're doing, we are just unpacking the pain of what it means to be black in America. And so on today, we have our men's ministry leader who will be hosting today's discussion in the person of Deacon Jerome Moore. We're so grateful for him, and he's going to moderate two sessions. So our first session is our more distinguished brothers here. They're all varying age, maybe from like 49 and under. We have a millennial with us to have this discussion with us. And then our second segment would be our distinguished gentlemen, seasoned gentlemen, that will have a further discussion on this. So without any further ado, I want to introduce you to our moderator in the person of Deacon Jerome Moore.
Thank you. Thank you, Pastor. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to personally thank you all for joining us today for our discussion on racial disparities and racial issues and social injustice. We have a group of gentlemen here to my left and my right. I'll allow them to introduce themselves. I'll start to my left with my brother right here.
My name is Antonio Turner, born and raised in East St. Louis, currently live in DuPont, Illinois.
My name is Joe Thompson Jr., Jolie Thompson Jr., from Edgemount, East St. Louis, currently in O'Fallon, Illinois.
My name is Anthony Jones. I was raised in East St. Louis, currently reside in Belleville.
I'm James Tennant. I'm from El Dorado, Arkansas. Live in Edwardsville, Illinois, currently.
My name is John Alvin III. I'm 24 years old. I was raised in Fairview Heights. I still reside there.
My name is Kenneth Harper. I grew up in East St. Louis, and I'm currently a resident of Belleville.
That's great, great. Guys, thank you for joining us. As I stated before, we're here, and obviously we're in a climate of time where there's currently a movement. I like to call it a movement that's in process. This movement is a civil rights movement, right? And the death of George Floyd, I would say, was a catalyst or an awakening for this movement. So I'd like to pose a series of questions to you guys, and hopefully it'll be an opportunity for you to kind of to unpack some of your bags, to let off some of your steam, that we can all just have a group conversation. As men, as we talk about some of the things that matters to us most, some things that we don't always have an opportunity to talk about in public. And so one of my first questions to you guys is about the death of George Floyd. How did the recent death of George Floyd by the hands of the police officers, right? How did this make you guys feel? What was your thought process? When you watched the video, what was your initial feeling? How did you process this information? What did it do for you? I'm just curious. We all have our feelings. We've all been through this, right? We've seen it with our own eyes. Somebody looked just like us, right? We've seen, and we've all had these type of encounters with the police before. So my question to you, gentlemen, is how did that make you feel? Anybody? Okay.
Well, I found it to be very disturbing.
Okay.
Actually to see it, from my own eyes, as opposed to just hearing about it and, hearing the police's account of what happened. Not much witnesses around. And so to watch this guy suffer an agonizing death, his life circling around a drain, pleading for help, it was really disturbing to see that. And you know, I came to the point where I wasn't surprised because this is another pattern of the minority of police officers that get involved in these incidents, whether it's deadly force or it's a carotid chokehold that takes the life of a black man. And so it just really goes to say that it should be a wake-up call. It should have hit every cylinder across the country, nationwide, to bring awareness to the situation. And so I think it really did dig deep this time because we have even people outside the black community is starting to speak out. And so with everybody seeing the same thing I saw, you know, the evidence is right there in front of us. And so that was my take on that, and it's really disturbing.
Brother Tony, you got something?
Yeah, initially I was just in shock. And then as time went on, as the video went on, I got angry. Then I just cried because I'm just listening to this man plead for his life, plead for his mother. And it was a hurting thing. And at that time I was on a lunch break, and I had to go back to work angry. Yeah. You know, and it was really heartening to see.
Yes, at first I didn't even want to watch the video, and I didn't for a few days. I didn't even see the video. I kept hearing about it, and I believe I didn't want to watch it because each time these kind of incidents happen with people of color, with black men, in a way it hardens people's hearts even more, and at the age that I'm at now, having seen all kinds of injustices and having seen other incidents of violence, people get tired, you know. And I believe that what made George Floyd's death more poignant or more, you know, it was more of a catalyst, was because we were just getting the news about Ahmaud Arbery,
right?
You see, and it's even and that story really hasn't been told in its entirety. We're still hearing stories about how he was chased for several minutes, how he tried to. I don't know if anybody knows this, but I feel like the media did a poor job with that story. How he the white guys that were in the trucks, how they chased him in, and you know how he was trying to escape the community actually. And the one guy was explaining how they were boxing him in and how he would run in and out of ditches, you know, like we're in the 1700s,
right?
You know, and it's just it's a traumatic kind of polarizing thought when you see that we can be done this way in 2020, 2019, when we're supposed to be a civilized country, when we're supposed to be one of the greatest countries in the world, these kind of things still happen. I remember the guy, James Byrd, was drugged from a truck back in the 90s. Right. You know, and it's disheartening, it's upsetting, and I know I'm not the only one, and I hope that people of color and other nations and everybody just kind of continue to keep the fire and keep the heat on for issues like this, because we can't continue, this country can't stand, we can't survive as a nation when these kind of things continually happen. It's always been told that this nation gonna be destroyed from within and all of that. And in a way, you get these little inklings of, you get these little hints and clues when these kind of things happen. You know, we the most powerful nation in the world, but yet we act like we can't get past, you know, this one thing, this color. So yeah, it's a terrible thing.
That's good.
Piggybacking off of what he said, when I saw it, I kind of was hesitant to look at the news. I feel like with social media being such a prevalent thing in today's society, unfortunately, I feel like, you know, we watch black men die on camera almost at least 3 times every year. So I can recall being a sophomore in high school, you know, watching Trayvon Martin get killed, you know, hearing about Mike Brown in high school. You know, I feel like in 2020, it's something I'm a little bit numb to. You know, unfortunately, it's a drop in the water. You know, I'm sure you guys have your own kind of stories about, you can remember some guy in the 90s getting drugged. You know, I grew up listening about Rodney King and things like that. And it's like in 2020, in the middle of an epidemic, you know, I got to read about 3 white officers kneeling on a black man's neck for 8 minutes and 45 seconds in a climate where we're not even supposed to be touching anybody.
Okay.
So, you know, like, as a black man, as a young black man, you know, I'm 24, I'll be 25 soon. You know, it's a lot of milestones we have to get by. We got to get by 18. We got to get by 21. You know, hopefully I can get by 25, you know, but it's like, I feel a little bit hopeless sometimes, you know. It's like generation after generation since the 60s, you know, we all got parents, we got grandparents who have direct ties to racist situations, you know. I feel like with a incident like that, I had a run-in with the police a couple weeks before that. So when I saw that, you know, I was like, oh, well, you know, thank God it wasn't me, you know.
It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, see that
You want to add to it?
it was disturbing for me because, you know, like I say, you're going through on the Facebook and you see the story, how it unfolded, and it's just like, at what point do people stop filming and say, you know, enough is enough? Okay, you got one person holding the camera. You got 3 other people saying, hey, man, you get off his neck, get off his neck. You know, I understand we can't be heroes or, you know, but I mean, what would have happened if someone out of that group would have just said, enough is enough, shove dude, you know? Now, yeah, it might have involved you now, but I mean, it's involving you as you take the picture anyway. You know, I've never been the person to be able to just stand by and let somebody be done wrong, okay? And I just don't think that I could have just stood there, you know? And I mean, that goes with any of you brothers right now. I just don't see that I could just walk past somebody. I mean, the officers, as we protested, the man, you know, I'm not changing it up, but how they just ran over the older white man and just didn't even give him a second glance. So it's just, it's us that we are upset about. I'm just saying, police, period. If the military has a situation that they have to abide by rules, you know what I'm saying? There you go, rules of engagement. I think that there should be a rule of engagement in every neighborhood. That means that at the end of the day, I shouldn't have to be worried about, will I go home from a traffic stop? Or will I go home because this lady thought that I was being upset with her or whatever. That's a reason for a policeman to act a fool with me. That's not it. You know, just to run my name is enough to make the average policeman act a fool. And that's what I was talking to my wife today about. You know, it's just like, it's crazy. You know, but I know that they say you make your bed and you lie in it, right? But what about after your time? You know what I'm saying? You did all your time and came home. You did what you had to do. Your debt to society is paid for. But they still have this on your record to where they can, you know, they hit the little CB. Now, everything's cool up until, well, this such and such blase blah come back now. Because you nervous, you feel up this, or I feel nervous every day that I leave outside my house. You know, and it's not just because of that, you know, I could be Floyd. Because I'm not the well, you can't bend me up. You know? Right. So now that's already, you know, where they say you're fighting the police. Well, I'm not agile to move. Right. So, you know, like I said, it hurt. And then to hear him actually beg out for his mama, man, and she did. I mean, that was the next, your mama here. Just how insensitive can a person be?
Hands in the pocket.
You know what I'm saying?
Chilling.
Yeah.
I just couldn't, I mean, it inflamed me, and I'm still fired up about it, but I also know that moving forward, I have to be able to set a cushion for myself.
Okay.
Right.
I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, but that's what I have to do for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is staying in the house, not doing too much, right? Because I don't want to have the awkward interaction with the police.
I mean, but is that okay? Is that how we want to live our lives?
And that's
you
what
know?
I'm saying.
No.
It's not. It's not. It ain't at all.
So we're calling this a movement. Where are we moving to then?
Huh.
I mean, because you think about it, right? I'm thinking, I think next month in July, it'll be about 64, 65 years, somewhere close to that. We're coming up on Emmett Till's death, right? Same situation.
Man.
They abducted him from his home.
Okay.
They tortured that man. They hung him and drowned him in a river, right? The boy at the time. 14 years old.
he was 14?
Now, this was a catalyst that sparked the movement then, right? Part of the civil rights movement during that time, right? I know there was other things on the burner as well, but that was one of the triggers that sparked that movement. How do we allow ourselves to be back in the same situation again? I don't know, maybe, did we ever come out of it? Can I successfully say, can I say back? Did we ever come out of it?
Did we?
Where are we going with this?
I think we took a probationary period. I think we're cool. It's one of those innocent until proven guilty. Like you're cool until you get pulled over. You know,
Right.
Yeah,
you're
right.
cool until you run a red light. You know,
Right.
you're cool until you roll that stop sign in that good neighborhood. You
Right.
know, because you could be in O'Fallon some days and get bold. You can be at Edwardsville after 11 p.m. Ain't no telling what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So I feel like we're cool until we're caught, so to speak.
Okay.
And the question I've been asking myself has been, had it not been a pandemic, would this just been a flash in the pan?
Good
I don't
question.
think anybody would have cared.
Good question.
And the thing is, with this being the pandemic, we without a pandemic, we have so many distractions. NBA basketball would have been going on, baseball, all these type of things. But now it has the world attention because the world had nothing else to focus on but this. So with this, we need to take advantage of it.
Okay.
How? I don't know, but it needs to be taken advantage of while we have the world's attention.
Okay. This is a great
Can
point.
and I believe that conversations like this is part of taking advantage of this situation. I also feel that the black man has been, we've been vilified on film, we've been vilified in books, and I believe that that's part of the reason why an officer can feel that it's okay for him to treat us a certain way, because we've been almost characterized as these villains. And I believe it's very important that that as a black man, that we all are, we have to be able to express ourselves. The world needs to know that we have emotions too, that we have feelings, we're human beings. And I believe that the same media that painted us a certain way, I believe it's on them to begin to paint us this other way, the way that we really are. The way they have to, it's on them to show it, to shed a different light, to express us, to show us in a different way. It's, I believe that the media, they're partly to blame for a lot of the ways we're characterized. And so it's on them also to change that dynamic. It's on them to change that appearance. We've given them so many examples of great or positive or noble black men. And quite honestly, I'm tired of giving them more and more positive examples. We have a right to feel, we have a right to be angry, we have a right to be upset.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, that's.
So if you, I'm glad you said that, because one of the 7 principles of Kwanzaa, and then Nguzo Saba, talks about naming ourselves, defining ourselves, and creating for ourselves, and things of that nature. That collective effort, and I do agree with you, but how much of that relies on us to change our own narratives? I know they have a part to play in that too, right? Because they hold a lot of paintbrushes. You understand what I'm saying?
I believe I believe we already do that.
Okay.
But our true character and our true nature gets smothered.
Okay.
You know, people love bad news. People love to put negative things out on social media.
Yeah.
If you scroll through Facebook right now, you'll see a whole lot of fights. And lately, what I like to see now and what I'm starting to see more is people say, man, take this mess off here. Don't show this.
Right.
Put some better on there. So you're right. It's definitely on us, but we don't have all the tools.
Right.
And so in order to change, you know, this nation would not be the nation that it is now without us. And so we're never going anywhere.
Absolutely.
So it's like a bad marriage. We got to find a way to make this thing work.
Right.
You know, or are we going to tear this whole house down?
Okay.
Tear it down.
Right, and you know, like just to piggyback off of what you said, it's really like a bad marriage. But you know, you keep giving us the raw deal. So I mean, which other way do we got to go? You know, I mean, if I'm struggling to make ends meet, and then you're gonna kick me in the teeth while I'm struggling, I mean, again, that goes against humanity.
Right.
I mean, that's just the part that just kills me with the average person that thinks that it's okay for an officer that is sworn to protect,
Right.
okay? Protect and serve you. But it's okay for him to come up and say, get up against the wall. Wait a minute. First off, you know what I'm saying? You came to help me or help a person in this situation. That means decline, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
De-escalate this whole situation,
Right.
and we try to figure it out from there.
Yeah.
But if you get out your car talking about, oh, what's going on? Get over here and sit down. You just, you know what I'm saying, took it to a whole nother level, and really and truly, I mean, I don't understand where you think that you're de-escalating anything.
So with all things considered, how do you respond to police as a black man? What is your code of conduct? I mean, what is your move? What's on the forefront of your mind? I remember driving through certain cities, and maybe my hat was to the back. Maybe I had a hat on, a fitted hat, for some odd reason, right? I see the police, I got to do a smooth move and knock my hat off or turn my hat around.
Right.
And that's
Because I don't want to get pulled over by the police.
And that's a shame, but that is a tactic.
So what is your
that
code? How do you respond to the police? I mean, what is your move? You know? I mean,
Me,
what's
myself,
your...
I'm me. I don't pay no attention to them. I drive until either the lights come on or it's a pass.
Yeah.
You know, because like I said, I ain't doing nothing wrong. You
don't
know,
have to do nothing wrong.
So therefore, hey, if he pulled me over, he exercising his right to do what he doing, right? So therefore, I have to exercise my right, which is be quiet.
Be quiet.
Because if I don't, I already know as soon as he run my name, it's finna go south. Yeah. So I don't have nothing to say no way.
Brother AJ.
Yeah, I mean, complying is the number one thing for me because my fight is in court.
Okay.
If it needs to get that far,
That's a good point.
That's what court is all about. The police is not the judge, jury, or executioner, or neither are they the prosecutor. So
Yeah.
I'm not gonna give them put them in a position to be one.
Okay.
You know, especially an executor.
Yeah.
You know, so I will just comply, follow instructions. That's part of being responsible. You know, it don't have to get no bigger than what it is right now. The police, you got to look at the
But
police.
that's what happened with Floyd, though.
Exactly. But you got to look at the police like they're there to collect and serve. They like the messengers. You know, they got a tunnel vision mission just out there to patrol the streets. They don't have any real power. The power is in the court, you know what I'm saying, when it's being decided by the judges and the jury.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
that's why I don't put a whole lot of stock in the police. I look at them as robots doing their job. This is the business on the street. And so, but hey, if they're here to apprehend, I'm gonna comply. Take me there. The next step is court. That's my challenge. That's my battleground.
Man, that's a great perspective, and I like that. But what do you say to those brothers that don't want to go back to the police station, that don't want to get in those handcuffs, that don't want to get in, don't want their names ran?
That's me.
Because they know if I get back in this court system, I go back and forth this judge one more time, then it's a problem. What do you say to those guys?
It's a lose-lose.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be, and that's the
That's
the
where that
whole-
frustration
that's where-
sit in,
Yeah,
right?
that's exactly.
That's where the
what
nervousness
I'm saying.
come from.
I've already done my time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's been 20 years ago. But as soon as they run the name, that's the first thing to come up.
So guess
You know.
what? You're going to start sweating. You might
Already.
not answer every
Look,
question,
look,
right?
look.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You might not because you're thinking about what's down the road, right?
Right.
I know
Yes.
I'm going to do, maybe I'm going to spend a weekend up in St. Clair County. I might not come back out to Monday. You know what I mean? Or whatever it may be.
Yeah,
you
I
know?
hope no situation like that come about, but
Yeah.
right, like you said, as soon as they run your name, now they want to tie the vehicle up, you know, and there's no reason for none of that for real, other than my past.
But I like what my brother said here, though. I like the responsible thing. You know what I mean? It's all
Yes,
about
I
being
mean,
responsible.
because you got to think about the bigger potential consequences, putting your family through the pain and suffering of losing you, losing your life. You know what I'm saying? That's the most important thing is for you to be alive for your family. I mean, I understand, you know, some of these guys, they have the fear of getting back in the system, incarcerated, locked down for a certain amount of time. But you got to choose which one. Because you got to think about your family, your friends, your loved ones.
Right.
Yeah,
You know,
but what I'm saying to you is I've already done my time. I'm not worried about going back. I'm talking about when that officer is standing there at my window and we didn't have a good, you know, like I was telling my wife, okay, truck driver. I was, you know, over the road truck driver. Well, in Ohio, found out that, you know, you're not supposed to park on the side of the road, you know, on the on-ramp. Found this out that day. Well, I'm in my, you know what I'm saying, skippies when, you know what I'm saying, the policeman pull up. You know, he beating on my truck. Well, I'm in the sleeper because I'm asleep. So I open up the, you know, my curtain. I say, "What's going on?" You know, he says, "Well, you're not supposed to be here. We're having a, you know, two-way conversation, and everything's cool until I handed him my license." Like I said, I'm standing here in my skippies. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And a t-shirt. That man ran my, you know, as he came down off of my truck, he was running my name. By the time he got to the hood of my truck, the trunk popped open on his car.
Yeah.
Here's the AR-15 pointed at me. And he's telling me, get out of the truck.
Right.
My man, you just saw I'm in my underwear.
Right.
I'm not on nothing. You know what I'm saying? I was in here getting my sleep.
You've been responsible.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm in here doing what I was supposed to do.
Right.
But at the same time, this is where he's going to tell me he feared for who and what. That's in the past, man.
That's a tough situation.
That's in the past. I mean, I'm moving. You know what I'm saying? I learned from previous.
Right.
You know, this ain't what I wanted to do.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, at the end of the day, yeah, we steadily say, well, you have to play your part. Well, I was playing my part. You see what I'm saying? I mean, other than getting out in my underwear when it was 10 degrees, you see what I'm saying? What else was I supposed to do? Keep telling him, look, man, you know I'm in my underwear. But now it's a situation of you not following his direction, which that's a bunch of crap too. You know, because at the same time, like I said, you saw.
Right.
It ain't like you wasn't, you know.
All right.
But
It's good information, man. It's a good, interesting viewpoint from both of you brothers. But I want to move on, right? I want to move on to one of the key reasons why we're here, right? We want to talk about racism, right? So dictionary.com, it defines racism as this. Racism is a hatred or intolerance of another race or other races. This is one. And the other definition says that it's a noun. It's a person, place, or thing, right? A noun. It's a belief or doctrine that inherent differences among the various human racial groups determine cultural or individual achievements, usually involving the idea that one's own race is superior and has the right to dominate over others, or that one race is inferior to others, right? So before I ask this question, I want to define what this particular definition of racism is, right? So that we're all on the same page, speaking the same language of what our idea of racism is. So my question to you guys, right, is tell me about a time when you first experienced racism, or doesn't even exist in your world at all. As a black man, does racism exist in your life?
Well,
and if so, tell me about a time when you first experienced it.
Well, the first time that I experienced it was growing up. Okay, my father was able to put us in a, upscale neighborhood, predominantly white neighborhood. Well, the friends that I grew up with, I had white friends. Mm-hmm. Well, the first time that I ever dealt with it, I was at their house. And it was, I can't believe these niggers are,
right.
doing it. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Oh, but you're not a nigger. What? How do we, I'm
I gotta distinguish the difference.
where's the difference?
Yeah.
Where's the guideline?
Okay.
But like I said, from that point forward, it was a, what do you do from here, Mm-hmm. Now, me, I was upset, yeah, it got to the point where it was, yeah, you wasn't talking about me, mm-hmm. but now I know how you feel about me, mm-hmm. And it was a, pushback and that type of situation, but, and then it also came down to this right here. It was like the same person that was ready to call them out, your house wasn't all the way together like that. Mm-hmm. You was almost the trashiest person in the neighborhood for this fact, but it was just flying so easily for you.
That's good.
So I just can't, understand it that, it just didn't rock or sit with me.
Right.
But at the same time, it's just like I don't get where, anybody else can say, no, it's not racism or there is no such thing as that.
Okay. All right. You guys got anything you want to share?
I recall living in East St. Louis. Back in the day, we used to ride bikes everywhere. Uh-huh. And this particular time, I think we rode to Belleville. At that time, Belleville was kind of forbidden for us. Uh-huh. And we had rode up. We did some riding, and there was a car pulled up next to us, and like, what the hell you doing here?
Right.
But us being that young, we never was disrespectful, because we was always taught to mind whoever. So we was like, well, we're just riding our bikes. You need to get back down that hill. And we was like, well, yes, sir. And we turned around and went on back down the hill. At that time, we just figuring like, it's just they looking out for us. I don't know what it was, but we were young. And when I understood, when I talked to my parent, and they made me understood what was going on, I was like, oh, wow. And then I looked at, when we introduced ourselves, everybody introduced themselves as being from East St. Louis, but we in these neighborhoods that we weren't even allowed in.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I was walking down the street with my brothers years ago. I was around 10 years old in Belleville, the city that I live in right now. And we were walking down the street, nice sunny day, and a white lady, she just screamed out, "Get out of here, niggers!" Huh. And I reacted. I was young, and I just I cussed her out, and my brother, these guys were older than me, they was like, "Hey, you can't do that," and I started crying, because I had never experienced the kind of hatred like that. I knew
rejection.
I didn't even know what it was at first. I didn't even understand, but I knew that I was innocent, and that what she was doing was totally wrong, and that affected me in a way, and I guess it was because I was so young. Right. I was afraid. I'm not afraid anymore. I'm a grown man now. But people need to be aware of when you do and when you hurt people, it leaves a lasting impression. That affected me my entire life. And it's still with me. And I'm a grown man. I can take care of myself now. Right. But this kind of thing is still happening to innocent kids right now today.
And it's
I was pulled over. I was pulled over by. I was followed and pursued by 2 Fairview Heights squad cars leaving White Castle years ago. And I'm like, man, they just on my tail. Why are they behind me? You know, and all it was I realized that they ran my plates. They realized I was from East St. Louis, and I didn't belong out there at that. The minute I drove down out of their jurisdiction, they turned right back around and went back up where they came from. You know, so those were experiences that I'll always, you know, that I have to deal with and live with. But it is what it is in this country. But I'm happy that we're at a point now that we can bring these kind of things to light. And I would want white people to just hear these stories and not be quiet, because honestly, if you sit back and you're quiet about it, you're kind of part of it. You're part of the problem.
Right.
You know, you're part of the problem.
Right.
Yeah, I find it pretty interesting because, you know, as you guys telling those stories, especially the story that you just told, a part of me, I look at it as a systematic approach. You know, I think that maybe possibly some of those type of things, incidents like that happen, are intentional, and is intentionally done at a young age, because those things carry over. You know, small little triggers and smaller incidents and things like that. You know, it creates bigger snowballs later in life. But yeah, that's pretty interesting. I was wondering about that whole racial aspect. You know, how does it fit in your life? Does it still exist? You know, and how do you go about addressing it day to day? How do you contend with it? So that's a great point that you both brought out. But I want to go back just a little bit, right? I noticed something when you guys began to talk about the George Floyd situation. At least 3 of you said that you were hesitant to watch the video, right? And that kind of stuck with me. And I don't understand it, right? I do understand it, but I don't understand your point of view. What was the hesitation about? What was the reluctancy about? Because that's something deeper inside there, right? That hesitation, that reluctancy to watch that. And obviously it's a hurt there. You knew the potential hurt, right, that can bring. Where is that coming from? Is that stemming from love? Somewhere deep down inside? Where's your thoughts on that? Where is that coming from?
I believe that it's we're human, and so to watch a modern day lynching, to watch a murder, we're men. You know, we have this there's an idea that we're savages, that we are barbaric, that we're barbaric, that we are, you know, ruthless, and all these types of names that don't fit. And so watching that really was a hurtful thing.
Yeah.
And so it took me actually about 2 to 3 weeks to actually watch it, because to watch that, and then just to see this frail, skinny man, you know, sitting on this giant, this man, you know, this man of stature, and I mean, just to suck his life away was torture, and so yeah, it was difficult. And then also as you watch it, you start putting yourself in that moment, as though some type of awakening happens in your body, and then you start seeing life at a different pace, in a different space, in a different reality. Like, whoa, like this is real, you know, regardless of what you guys talked about growing up. And so I grew up in a place where, you know, if I act correctly, you know, the idea of racism tended to fade away. And so as I become more professional at being something, you know, and then I started believing that racism actually didn't exist, because I was so good at becoming the prototype, or what I was taught to be.
Oh, wow.
And so it was effective, you know, throughout my life. It was effective through college and school. You know, I was able to get privileges because I was able to be that particular person, that smiling guy. And so it all comes to a end and a brick wall.
Wow.
You know, and then you start becoming. You have to use God to check your anger, because, you know, these things, when you start realizing that these things, there's suffering going on, there has been suffering going on in the past, and you have not been a part of it because you have programmed yourself that you weren't a part of it, you know, by causality, by habit, by getting these rewards. And so you're starting to say, Like, I'm not like that because, I can do this. And you get a reality check, and it puts you in a place where something festers and it boils. And so you have to find an outlet and a release, a healthy release. You have to use all those things all those tools that you gain, the education, the energy, the fire. And so you have to say, am I going to use this now because my eyes have been awakened? So my eyes have been lifted. So am I going to use this to help? Or am I going to just continue to be that okey-doke Negro that you have become? Or yet you have trained yourself to be.
Come on.
So, yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
That's pretty.
Piggybacking off of what he says, being that guy in that role, I played football at a couple small schools and a couple, remote locations. You kind of do become that token a little bit. I like rock music a little bit myself. So, like, when it comes to certain situations, they don't necessarily like, they don't like black people, but they like you, So when they like you, you assume they kind of can see what you are, So like if you like me, I'm a young black man, I like hip hop music, I like tying my do-rag up, I like walking around in just a tank top, That threatens some people, I could lose my life over my outfit one day, But it's like I had a lot of friends reaching out to me these last couple weeks, almost apologizing. Like, hey, I didn't know, I had no idea, I'm so sorry, how can I help, how can we fix this? And I'm like, dude, it's June 2020. I've been black 24 years, like,
Come on.
These type of things have been an issue. Like, if you have to text me and apologize to me in 2020, you didn't do your job as a white ally. If you have black friends and you don't see racism, how can you have black friends? How can you scroll past us getting killed on CNN for 24 years straight?
That, I like that.
Why did it take a pandemic where nobody's outside, we're all in the house watching TV, for you to finally say, hey, that looks bad, hey, that might be racist? And it's like, it was racist 2014, it was racist in 2012, it was racist when they beat Rodney King up,
Well, gentlemen, I think we're nearing the end of this segment right here. But before we go, I just want to give you guys the opportunity to say anything that's on your heart and on your mind. Just closing remarks, anything you want to say to the digital world out here. Somebody may be listening. Somebody may need to hear something from you, or something that you just may want to just say to one of us, man. It's okay, you know what I mean? But just want to give you opportunities. No pressure. If you guys want to say something, then feel free.
I got one thing that I believe, I guess is a little important. What I want to say is this. You talked about racism and you defined racism, and it's one group thinking that they're better than another group. And I believe that a lot of white America, a lot of them fall victim to that concept, because when we're taught history in school, we're really only taught from the moment we came off slave ships. And I believe if our entire history was taught and butted up against the European history, we would come, the outcome or the understanding of who we are as a people, even in our own lives and in the way we see ourselves and the way they see us, I believe it will be understood more. So I'm happy that more films and more movies are coming out that's talking about who we were before we came here.
Yes, sir.
Because our history started way before we came on these shores.
Amen.
And it's so glorious. It's so glorious to hear and read about what we used to be. And we're still those people.
Still those people.
But we'll get there. But that's all I got to say.
It's part of this awakening, man. Yeah. Anybody else got anything?
My thing is, when it comes to the matter of policing, I just think it has to come down to knowing the people that you're policing.
Okay.
As far as examples out of East St. Louis, Washington Park, you don't hear these things happening because the police know the neighborhoods they're policing, and the neighborhoods know the police, So it's a matter of just knowing exactly who you're policing and what are you trying to do in the neighborhood that you're policing.
That's good.
Well, I just want to piggyback off of what he said. As a black man with white friends, like I said, just basically hear your black friends and understand that it's not all about us trying to put you to the side, but it's like, for real, let's help the wheel be turned, because we been turning this wheel, but for us to get better in the eye standards of everybody else, it takes everybody.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
I think to piggyback, if you're going to do that, I believe that it is necessary that you demand more from them. It's just not for them just to hang out, but you have to send them on task.
Yeah.
Because it's real.
They got to protest first.
Yeah.
If it's real, it's real, right?
Yeah. So and then also let them know. Then also do your work to educate yourself. Then educate them. Let them know about the systematic structures that keeps us in poverty.
Yeah.
Then by that, they're talking to them. Then you'll see if they're your real friends or not. Because they'll be empathetic and sympathetic, and they'll have a charge in their body to make a move. Say, hey, you know what? I might not have all the answers, but from this point on, I'm going to be more conscious and then move forward. And I believe by doing that, we can do something big.
That's good. Well, gentlemen, brothers, thank you. I appreciate you being so open and candid, man, and talking about some of your personal experiences and things like that. But what we're going to do, we're going to move on to just a slightly different session. Some of the same content, but we want to get a different perspective coming from a different age group, okay? But gentlemen, I want to thank you. Thank you all for your time. I appreciate you. Good.
Brother.
Appreciate you. Thanks, guys, man.
All right, praise the Lord. We're back. We're in segment 2 of this powerful discussion. I want to thank those brothers that were in our first session. They enlightened us. We thank God for their transparency. We thank them for their honesty and their realness. And we're grateful to God to have with us now gentlemen from the church and that upper age tier. They have some years on them. They've matriculated this world. to a certain extent. Most of the men on here are very close to 50, are 50 and older. And so we want to learn from their wisdom, how they've matriculated all of their lives, how they've gotten through dealing with the police, dealing with racism, dealing with those things that we seem to still be struggling with in this day and time. So at this time, I'm going to turn you back into our moderator that he may take over from this part.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening again, everyone. Obviously, we have a new panel here, and we're going to jump right into it. I'm going to allow these gentlemen to introduce themselves. Starting on my far left, you can have the floor for yourself, sir.
My name is Willie Jones. I'm currently a resident of East St. Louis, and I've been in East St. Louis all my life. I lived in a couple other communities, but East St. Louis will always be part of me.
Yeah, that's good.
My name is Carlos Reed. I am an East St. Louis resident, currently residing in Belleville, but I was born and raised in East St. Louis.
Hello, I'm Anthony Jones, raised in East St. Louis, currently reside in Belleville.
Hey everyone, I'm DJ, East St. Louis.
All right.
I'm Joe Thompson Sr., really from Mississippi through East St. Louis, now O'Fallon, Illinois.
My name is Eric Brown. Good evening. I'm from Edwardsville and currently reside in Edwardsville.
That's good. That's great. Great. Thanks, guys, for joining us this evening. It seems to me you guys are from a diverse but centrally located zone, right? Throughout your years, my first question to you, gentlemen, is what changes have you seen? You know, if there's been any, have you seen any improvements as far as race relations? Eric, I know you said you're from Edwardsville, born and raised, and I know at some point you've kind of observed some changes out there as well. Just in general, you know, how have things changed over the last, maybe say, 25, 30 years that you guys have observed, if any at all?
Well, when I look for change, I would like to see it as me being a black man, black change. You know, I can't just categorize or just put all change in one basket.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and over the last 25 years, as a black man, I don't really see change.
Oh, wow.
I see adjustments here and there, but not enough progress for me to actually call it change. You know, I mean, to me, the change was the Klan took off the sheets and now they're in suits. That's the change that I see. But the discrimination and the racism has just adjusted and shifted because it still exists, as strong as ever.
I agree with Brother Eric. I really don't see a change. As I look back over my life, I can't see a change as far as racism. I look at my own life and I just adjusted to it. I adjusted to racism. You know, it's just the way it was, the way it is. And in my generation, you just had to deal with it. You know, so you had to adjust to it. You know, I don't see any change because we're still protesting for equal rights, to vote. They're still trying to suppress us in every way. They're still beating us. They're still killing us. The system, when we look at systematic racism, that simply means that the system is racist because the system is controlled and by white people, and they made the laws of the system. They are the system. You know, back in the day, you used to say, you know, the man. You know, we called it. You know,
right.
You know, I'm working. I'm fighting against the man. You know, with the man was the white man. and nothing's changed. You know, it's still a struggle. You know, we still protesting for voting rights. We're still protesting to be treated equal. You know, so I don't see a big change as far as racism is concerned. You know, as far as how we're treated as human beings, because if there was a change, we wouldn't be having this forum here today. So that's not been a great change. There's been a great, more of a awakening to it, you know, where one has to die, to lose his life, you know, to see that we're still not equal. For you know, I mean, how is it that somebody has to die? You know,
Man, you're going deep.
I'm not going to be long, but I saw on the news today where a white man from DuPont, Illinois, was pursued by the police all the way over to Missouri for an hour. And when he finally wrecked the car, jumped out the window, and ran from the police, he wasn't shot. When they apprehended him, he was resisting arrest. He wasn't beat. Now, why? He did the same thing that a black man might have did.
And worse.
And yet he didn't receive, he wasn't subject to police brutality.
Right.
As a matter of fact, the ambulance was there. You know, to wait,
right there
waiting to take him away.
Man,
you know, to see was he all right.
Yeah.
So nothing's changed very much.
Man, I got to tell you, I'm 40 years old. I don't want to say it's disheartening, but it's heavy. Go ahead, Brother Carlos, like you want to say something.
I was just going to piggyback off what they said. You know, it's kind of different. I'm 49, but coming up in my age group, my age bracket, I wasn't really introduced to racism because I grew up in East St. Louis.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a whole lot of nobody but us.
Right.
You know, I don't know if we was trained or we just knew we didn't go past 89th and State. You know, as I got older, when I would drive to Belleville or I'd drive to Fairview Heights, let me go backwards. I was blessed. God blessed me at a young age of 19 to do things that other people may not have been able to do. So I had a nice car and I was flashy.
Right, okay.
You know.
Yeah.
But when I would go up in Belleville, I would get trailed to my destination. They would wait until I left, whatever time it was, whether they switched shifts or whatever.
Yeah.
And they would trail me back down the hill. I made sure I went under the speed limit, made sure I had my seatbelt on.
Yeah.
Because I knew that I was going to be targeted.
Yeah. It's sending a signal to you.
Right.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I got older that I am now, that I was introduced to racism. Even in the city of East St. Louis.
How so?
Look at the jobs, the manufacturing jobs.
Right.
That are in East St. Louis,
Yeah.
Granite City.
Right.
And then count the African American people
Yeah.
that have those jobs that's making that money
Yes, sir.
in that area.
Yeah.
And look at how many people come from out of town
Right.
to get those jobs. And nobody in this city qualified
Yeah.
for those positions.
Right.
That is amazing to me.
Don't add up. It don't add
You
up.
know, I just don't get it. So it wasn't until I got older, like now, that I realized racism still exists.
Still exists.
I mean, even in high school, Black history wasn't an option. We got American history.
Yeah.
What happened to Black history?
Yeah.
Why come it's not an option in the grade school?
Yeah.
My kids go to my school.
Uh-huh.
My kids were taught, if I'm not mistaken, that they are caramel.
Wow. Yeah.
In the school to school district.
Yeah. Yeah.
To be accepted.
Yeah. That's pretty interesting. Anybody got anything else after that?
Yeah, I would just like to piggyback off of what's been said. You mentioned about 25 years. I see some change, but not a whole lot of change. There is some change, but not a whole lot. I can think back a few years. What I couldn't do, my sons can, you know. The job I might have wanted, for whatever reason it was, I couldn't get the job. But now I see my sons, they are able to get the job. Now I'm not saying it fixes everything, it just only fixed this one thing, you know, but there's many more after them that they are looking for the same job, they can't get it. So if we pick one and skip another one, or skip 2 or 3, that still is not helping us. So we need a complete change then, so we all can see it as African American men, older men, young men, middle-aged men, that we can all see this change. Then we will agree there is some change, but we still got a long ways to go, even though if you get 2 or 3 of us, move 2 or 3 of us up, but we still have a long ways to go.
You know, it's interesting because one of the running quotes, you know, the hot quotes of the day right now is "make the change." And I found myself thinking today at work, you know, what does that actually mean? You know, make the change. And for you gentlemen that's been around and seen a whole lot and seen these type of things, I just want to know, what is your perspective? Is it optimism? Do you still have optimism at your age? Not saying you're ancient. You know what I'm saying? At your age, do you still have optimism? Seeing so much throughout so many years and saying, man, here's a repeated cycle, right? Here we go again. Another man shot. Here we go again. Marching again. Here we go. Protesting again. Do you feel like we're charting in the right direction? Is there still hope for you? Or do you see, you know, hey, I know what you're saying. You've seen some differences, right, from your sons, from your generation to your sons. But is it moving at the pace that it needs to move? Or are we making a change that we need to make?
No, it's not. It's not. Is there hope? Yeah.
There's hope?
There's always hope. We, as Bible believers, and believe that the Lord has not forsaken us, we still have hope.
Yeah.
But to say that this is problematic after 400 years of the same thing happening over and over again, and there hasn't been any significant change. I don't want to say anything different from what's been said up here, but when you look at what every American citizen should have, and there is a great, there's a segment of this society, this nation, that doesn't have it.
Yeah.
Until they have it, you don't have change. We have progress, but we don't have change.
Yeah.
You look at most of these corporations, if they're still all owned by white or European Americans, that's not change. When you see all of the different things that go on, and you see most of the control of this country, most of the economic power most of the power in general is pretty much in the hands of European Americans. That's not changed.
Yeah.
We've got some progress. We can eat at the same diner, as Malcolm X said.
Yeah.
We can use the same toilet as they use. We can drink from the same water fountain. You know, those types of things are progress, if you want to call it that.
Right.
But nothing has changed until we are equal. Until I can walk down the street, and if I can put in a job application and I am as qualified as someone of European descent and I get the job, or if I'm qualified for the job and someone of European descent doesn't get the job, then we're talking about change. But until those things happen, there is no change. No change at all. But we're hopeful because God is still on the throne.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Willie Jones, you had made a comment a little while ago, and you said that you, after so many years, you said, I don't see a lot of change. You said, I've kind of accepted it and I've adjusted, so to speak. So I want to speak to that adjustment, right? There's a thing that we, a wave that we're in right now, and we talk about being unapologetically black, right? Being ourselves, and it's okay to be yourself, right? With that adjustment that you're talking about, do you feel like you compromised your character, your identity, your essence of being who you are in order to appease the system, to attain whatever it is that you need to attain?
Of course I do.
And is that okay with you? And is that okay with you, I guess what I'm saying?
No, it's not okay with me.
Okay.
But how can you really be yourself when you don't really know who you are?
It's good.
I was at the doctor a few days ago, and there was a white man at the doctor, and he was being waited on, registered in. And my name is Willie Jones, and his last name was Jones, and his first name was William Jones. Now, my mind just went south. I'm thinking to myself, now, his name is Jones, my name is Jones. Me knowing that this is really not my name, that this really is my slave name, I'm thinking, I wonder was his ancestors, my ancestors, slave masters? Because I know I'm not a Jones. I don't know who I am. That's why Malcolm X was X, because he didn't know who he was. And so I really feel like, my identity has been stolen, as far as being who I am. So I had to submit to the system, I had to. And when I say system, I'm stuck on this systemic racism. Yes. As Elder DJ said, they control everything. They control everything, and so I feel like I had to adjust. I had to conform to their ways because that's all I knew. And I do believe, and I don't know if it's off subject, but I do believe racism is really taught now. It's taught. It's not born in you. You're not born a racist. I'm not born a racist. But when I was a kid, Mom and Dad always taught us to respect and to respect our elders. It didn't matter what color they were, where they lived. They just always taught us to respect older people. So, and that's in me today. And I believe that racism is still being taught. I believe that racism is being taught. It was a time that I felt that maybe all the old Southerners and all the old racists and bigots would die out. But now I don't believe that because they're teaching their children.
Respawning.
They're teaching their children to hate me, to hate you because of the color of their skin. Yeah. And let me digress a little bit, because I'm focused on this systemic racism. I can remember in the neighborhoods to relate to Deacon Reed was saying, I used to look at the people that used to drive the gas trucks, the telephone company trucks, even the bread trucks, even the 18-wheelers. All these guys were white. I didn't see any black guys with these jobs when I was growing up. I didn't see any of these guys with these jobs. You know, all I saw with these jobs were white men. So, but there has been some change to that extent, but they still run the system.
No, just to piggyback off what Minister Jones was saying, you know, I kind of feel like we're all taught to cope, to take down, to hold back.
I think they go way back to the plantation, right? But go ahead, though. Yeah.
You know, what he said was, you know, it's basically, it's normal for us because we've lived that way all of our life. You know, none of us was chained up. None of us was on a chain gang.
Mentally.
You know, but when you saw a white person, you automatically allowed them to go in front of you.
Right.
You know, because it was just how you were brought up. Systematically.
All of us wasn't brought up that way.
Talk about it, man.
No, I wanted a deacon to speak, but I'm gonna get on there.
I'm sitting here, I'm listening, and it's like I've been here before.
Ooh.
I've seen Medgar Evers on TV, sit in the same forums, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Farrakhan, all sit in these same forums talking about these same problems. And you want to say, is there change? Is there progress? It can't be progress if the same rules that every black man has been playing by, written in the Constitution that never applied to us.
Exactly.
How can change happen if we're still living by the same rules that suppressed us?
See, you hitting on something, man.
You know, if we change the rules to make them equal, truly equal, rewrite it, make it equal, then by law, we will definitely be equal. These little bitty tidbits here and there are not getting us nowhere. I mean, we're crying the same tears that our ancestors were crying 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago. I mean, you can go back to slavery.
Yeah, absolutely.
When a black man was only a fifth of a man.
Right.
You know,
1/5 of a human being.
What has changed?
3/5. Yeah.
3/5.
Yeah.
3/5 of a man. What has changed?
Yeah.
We don't own any NFL teams, but we got all the black players.
Right.
We don't own any NBA teams, but we got all the players. I mean, all these big conglomerates that are controlling all the money, the banks, all the entertainment, we don't own none of that. Now, we got a little handouts here and there. You know, we got these young black boys looking at these athletes thinking that they're rich. They got one guy that sits up in the boxes paying all their salaries. So who's really rich? You know, but the rules got to change from the beginning. The Constitution has to change.
Man, look, brother.
In order for change to happen.
It's something magical. It's something mystical
Y'all
about
asking for
that
death.
highest law in the land, man.
Yeah.
It's protected for a reason, man. You know what I mean? It's something there. You know what I mean?
You know what's
and
amazing?
I'm totally agreeing with you. Go ahead.
You know what's amazing?
Yes, sir.
To me, they learned that if I tell you something, you believe it. So what they did was they told us that slavery was over, thinking that because they didn't have the chains on them, that we would feel like it was. But then they presented a gift to us. They gave us the Statue of Statue of Liberty. But have you ever seen the Statue of Liberty?
Got that chain down there.
The Statue of Liberty has shackles on her feet and a chain about her legs, representing you might think you free, but I still got control of you. I still determine what you can and can't do.
Right. Yeah.
Nobody ever shows the picture
Yeah.
of her feet.
Yeah.
They always look at the torch.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's all about history.
That's good.
So let me ask you brothers this. Then that you brothers are above you some seasoned brothers up here. My question is this. Are you finding it difficult, or are you making attempts and efforts to talk to the next generation? I don't want to go too deep on maybe my personal experiences, but I've found that men, black men of a certain age, they tend to get quiet, and they don't really speak to the generation underneath them. And I'm saying this respectfully, but there's an age group that I've found, that I've encountered in my personal life, and it seems to range from 50 on, 55 on up, 50, 55 on up. And I got to tell you, my dad was a quiet man. He was one of the same. And I know other gentlemen in that age, because I respect my elders. I love my elders, right? So I love to talk to my elders. But I found that elderly men don't seem to have the same conversation as some of the elderly women. Is there a reason, if at all, that men of a certain age are not talking to the next generation? Because this is what we need to get to, right? Because what you guys are holding in are the things that we need to hear, right? You have the wisdom. We have the might. I think when these two roads begin to combine or converge, we may be on the brink of something special. So let me ask you guys that. I mean, is there any reluctancy on your end to speak to the next generation? Go ahead.
Yes, I find it that I personally, I love talking to the younger generation.
Okay.
I can go back to when I was in middle school and high school. The schools that I went to wasn't even integrated. It was all my color. It was all African Americans there. And this didn't happen till like the late 60s. Matter of fact, it was 1967 when the schools that I was going to got integrated with Caucasian, the white kids and stuff. And in the books that we received, and I love telling this to the younger generation, our school books was not brand new books. Most of them books was used that they had came from the white schools and they gave them to our schools, and we had to learn. We knew a bunch of their names and stuff because they was in the back. You had to write your name in the back of the book. Wow. And we would always have to put our names under their names. So we never was on top. Our name was under there. And so when it came to stuff like that, you know, it really, as we got older, it really, really hurted us that even the school books that we supposed to be learning how to get through this world, it's been used. It's a hand-me-down. So, you know, when you get to start thinking about stuff like that, we really got the short end of the stick. So when I talk to young people, especially the young men, I love to tell them, I am glad you are doing what you are doing. Just keep the pressure. Someday we're gonna make it. And I mean, it's not an overnight thing, but it's someday we are going to make it because we have to keep putting pressure on the folks that's on top in order for them to look down. If we never say anything, if we never holler out, they'll never look down. So we have to holler out so they can look down and see, hey, I got to do something different here because this is not getting them anywhere. And once we get one person on top, don't forget where you came from. Always try and horse the other guy up. Say, look, man, grab my foot. Just stay with it as long as you can, and I'll get you to my hand.
Yeah.
You know, that's the way we have to talk. So when I see a lot of our young brothers not going to school, not trying to get anything, it really hurts me because I know how hard it was for me growing up. At times, you might think this strange, but we could not go to school. We could not go to the public school. We had to wait a certain time before we could go to the public school because my family had made a deal with the boss man, as we would speak of, and he had to do what the boss man say do before we could go to school. Wow. And my friends and I, we talked about this all the time, and you know, it's a hurting thing, but little progress is better than no progress.
Yeah. Amen. Right. And that's the system. That's part of the system to keep us uneducated. Now you look how far that goes back. You know, and that's why, you know, you have to tell the young people, you know, education. Education, education, education. You know, that may be your key to getting out the ghetto. Education. You know, and sometimes you hesitate to talking to young black guys because they don't seem like they listen. You know, it just seems like it goes in one ear and out the other.
I think they're tired.
And that could be a point too because they don't see any change.
Tired.
But I think, you know, you have to keep instilling it in them. You know,
Yeah, I mean, that's true. We do have to keep instilling it in them, but you know the cliche, it takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I chastise a little young boy and now his mama or daddy got a problem with it,
right.
What do you think I'm going to do the next time?
Yeah.
See, it's the
Say
respect. I'm hands-off. That's right. And that's what we're getting to. The village is not raising the child no more.
Oh, okay.
You know, because there's so much resistance. You know, there's so much resistance. And it's even in our own families. You know, the pecking order, the respect in our own families.
Yeah.
How the black man just has no respect across the board. You know, and I'm not blaming the black man. I'm blaming more or less like society. You know, the struggle that the black man had to go through, that he still has to go through. You know, now his wife is getting promoted, making more money than him. That's another ploy. Him not being qualified for the job, but his wife can get a nice job. Or he is qualified for this job, but somebody else, wife got the job instead of him as a secondary job to their family.
Right.
You know,
right.
I mean, it's just not a group effort.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a consistent
Yeah.
group effort.
Yeah.
You know, we've lost the consistency. You know, we have to get the consistency back, and you can't deviate from the consistency. That's the only way money grows. Right. That's the only way families grow. Is staying consistent. Grandma say something, everybody in the house got quiet.
Yeah.
Now grandma got to tell everybody shut up now because kids don't want to listen.
Yeah.
Because the parents ain't enforcing the kids to listen.
Right.
You know.
So how do we get back? How do we get that? How do we attain that?
Okay, it goes back to the family structure.
Okay.
That's been torn apart probably since the late 60s, early 70s. That, you know, some of the reforms issued by the government been kind of handicapping our people in our community, lessening our standard, lowering it. And what it did, it got the man out the house, you know, in the projects. The man can't stay there. He got to go. You know, he got to move away. The woman, you know, have to take over the children. And that was a tactic of their way of dividing us. And this is what's been going on for the last 50 years. And it has carried on. Even then you had the crack epidemic that hit. You know, of course, our people didn't bring, or none of our people are growing opium, you know, inside our community. So it was placed there, and it kind of, you know, galvanized a lot of our people sucked them into that. So that was another reason to get them out the house. Yeah. And then you had the bill that was signed, for crack, for guys to do 20 a life, just 20 years for crack as opposed to cocaine. Yeah. That was another way, way through incarceration. And of course, the rest of the systemic racism, healthcare, the criminal justice system, education department in poverty neighborhoods, and it just all across the board has really devastated our community, destroyed our families, and I think that it'd be for us to go back and reach our young generation to fill some of those voids that's needed to be filled in these successful fields, such as we need more doctors, more lawyers, more politicians such as mayors. We need some senators, to get in those seats to make a change. We need some scientists, some more tech guys, we need some guys in Silicon Valley, all across, those big CEO corporations. We need to accrue some economic power.
You know what? I think, going back to your question, I think we don't give the young people of this generation enough credit.
How so?
I think they are very intelligent.
Yeah.
I think just listening to the younger guys that were on stage before us, they are highly intelligent. They have a plan. What I do think, though, is they recognize the saying of insanity. You keep doing something the same way, you're going to get the same thing. And I think, they've seen Dr. Martin Luther King march, singing Kumbaya, we shall overcome.
One day. One day.
All of that. They've heard all the Negro spirituals, they saw all of that.
Right.
And insanity would tell them to keep on doing that. Well, now they're taking a different approach because they want something different. And I think subconsciously, they're like, you know what? I'm not going to live like this. What I've seen the other generations before me live. Yeah. And so also I believe that you reap what you sow. America has planted a seed, and they're reaping the harvest of the seed that they have grown. All of the things that you just mentioned, all those are seeds that were planted. And I don't want to go too biblical, but there was a Jeremiah. God told him to go down there and see the wrought that was being wrought on the wheel.
Right.
And that clay became marred, but God made it over again. And I think we're seeing some of that. This generation is getting probably more done than what we got done with the tactics that they're using. And I think the older generation, my dad, they're always talking to the young generation. But what I'm seeing this young generation, what they won't do is they won't take the advice that do it the way that we did it. They're not going to do that. They're not, because what we did got us nothing, and they don't want to go forward with nothing. So by any means necessary.
But what they have to do is still, they're on the shoulders of the others. These protesters now and these politicians and these people that are fighting for our rights, they're still on the shoulders of people like Malcolm X, Dr. King. If it wasn't for those people, I still believe that, Dr. King, he never stopped believing in nonviolence. He never did. He never did. So I don't think violence will solve anything. But I do agree with you, Elder Thompson, as far as these young people today are very intelligent, very motivated because of what others did. And you have to look at it. You got those people, and you got these people. You got the others, and you know, you got those that will listen, and you got those that won't listen. So how do we reach those? That's another. How do we reach those that won't listen? You know, how do we reach those that are sucked into the system, that feel like that? You know, we can feel their anger. You know, because let me go back. You know, because when I was a kid, I grew up in East St. Louis, and I never really went out of East St. Louis, so I didn't really experience racism until I was grown. You know, all my heroes were pimps, pushers, players. Those were my heroes. I didn't see any black doctors. I didn't see any black lawyers. I didn't see any of that when I was growing up. And when I got grown, I was told that even if you're a black doctor, or if you're a black lawyer, or if you're a black politician, when it all boiled down, you were still a nigger. You know,
you just have to speak their language.
You know,
to answer your question,
I speak their language.
You have to speak
but what
their
is?
language.
I don't know their language anymore.
Yeah.
What are these young people's language? And we don't want to go into that part of it, but
Right.
where we, but a question I can ask, and I've got to ask this question, because when people turn on us, why do we turn on each other?
That's a great question. It's a great question. And I understand, and I feel exactly
I know.
what you're talking about.
I know.
But you asked the question about young people.
Yes, sir.
And being able to, how do we reach them?
Right.
And what has happened is, all of us that grew up in poverty areas, we've worked so hard to try to get our kids a better life.
Right.
That we've pulled ourselves out of our children's lives.
Wow.
You know, we're working 2 and 3 jobs to give them a better chance at a better education and a better life. But it's taking us out of their lives.
Right.
And they're being raised by the media.
Yeah.
By tablets and video games and rap music and things that they take into themselves. But to fix this, you have to do what you did. You ask the question. And when you ask the question, that plants the seed of what do I need to do to be able to maintain my family status, but also be a part of my kids' lives.
That's good.
Yeah. So it's good. So we're doing a lot of family talk, right? Talking about in-house talk, talking about our people, you know. But currently, you know, in different states right now, as we speak, there's probably a protest going on somewhere. It's a different type of protest, different from what I've seen, right? I'm seeing a protest from whites, blacks, Mexicans, all these different type of races coming together, and they're protesting and protesting and protesting. So my question is this: how do you respond to the phrase, "We need more unity now than ever between the races"? So I'm hearing a lot of racial unity. Let's all come together on one side, and on the other side, I'm hearing, hey, we need to get our own stuff together and our own stuff, get our condition and our issue stuff. We get our things together, then you can come join the party. So how do you respond to that phrase? We need more unity now than ever between the races. You know what I mean? Because I'm seeing a lot of that. You know, is it a time for unification right now? Or is that, you know, almost like an, you know, a veil there, you know, that's kind of clouding us from seeing our real issues and things that we need to address on our own?
Well, I think, you know, I think both of them are necessary. You know, one of them to me is done at home, and the other one is done in public. Yeah. And I know there's a lot of marching and there's a lot of, you know, things going on through a lot of different communities. And I'm not saying it's in vain, but to me, I think it would show a lot more progress if they started hitting somebody in the pocket. You know, yeah, you protesting, we're gathering, we're marching. Stop spending your money. Pick out a different business every week and stop spending your money. And I don't want to name no companies per se, but I'm just saying, stop spending your money. You'll get more attention than standing on the courthouse steps. Stop going to this store. Stop going to that store. Move your money from this bank to that bank. Start making a financial effort, because that's the only way you're going to hit the man, is if you start messing with his money.
Yeah.
That's when your voice going to be really heard.
Okay. All right.
And I would like to just add just a little something to that. And that is true. Once we start spending our money in different places, then you get the voice, the mind of the people that own this here, you know. So that's the only way we can do it. It was not spend our money there. I'm going to speed this up. I remember when I was younger, when the folks used to boycott different places, they would shut that place down. And it wasn't much longer, maybe a week, a month. Whatever place they shut down, store, regardless of where it was, they moved out because they had no income. So if they're not receiving anything, they're going to leave. They're going to vacate that. So you got to stop giving them your money. We talk about them, but we still giving our monies to them, and they just keep on doing what they're doing. Once we can resolve that, I think we got something going.
Okay. So I got one last question. All right. How you guys sleeping tonight? I mean, are you sleeping okay with the current climate? Everything is okay, or we went back to sleep? It's been about 3-4 weeks now since the George Floyd incident. Are we going back to sleep? We still got fire in our bones? There's another wave that came in and went back out? I mean, where are we now?
You know what? Every one of these public lynchings, it shocks me the same. It's just as bad as, Rodney King in the 80s. It still is a shock that this is still happening, and we still watching it happen. The police are doing it, and other cops are still watching it happen. I'm not saying that they're not doing anything, but I would not want to really be a black cop. We haven't heard the black cop story. You know, I know I have not, and I know there are a lot of black police officers out there. How do they sleep at night, knowing their coworkers are killing their people, their cousins? What's their work environment like? You know, that's what puzzles me. I know what my work environment is like. Mine is like quiet. Mine's like real quiet. You know. But what is a black cop's work environment like?
Yeah, good question.
My thing is that every time I see that, I hear talk of that, it's to me that cop was posing. You know, when they go out and shoot an animal, if you guys ever watched it, they always get up around the animal heads or something, and they put their knee on it. So I'm saying that the lynching he was posing while he was killing my son. You know, he could have been my son. And when I wake up, it just hurts me to my heart. You know, what are we gonna do about this? If it's something I had a crystal ball, if it's a such thing that I could just cast it out and this would be gone, I would do it. But this racing thing, we just gotta just keep. It's just like a hard boulder or rock. We just got to keep chipping. We're going to bust this thing. We're going to bust it. So we just got to keep hitting on it, and we're going to get through. We're going to get through because we got more and more. See, like every cycle, we get more and more people to join. And once we get this big snowball rock rolling, then we're going to it's going to lead a path that we need, that we know we have made significant, a pathway that we're gonna be equal. We're gonna be equal in this country before it's all said and done. We are going to be equal because it's going to happen. We've come too far to stop now.
It's great. It's great.
I'm gonna say it's amazing, just listening to this panel, to hear about history.
Yeah, man.
And to think coming up that it didn't exist, but it did.
Yeah.
It just wasn't broadcast.
Yeah.
We didn't have cell phones and ways of recording
It's may make a difference.
what was going on
Right.
behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Now, they're not doing nothing new.
Yeah.
They're doing what they was doing all along.
Uh-huh.
And we're just broadcasting it now.
Yeah.
We're just making each other more aware of what's been going on
Awareness
all
is
of
the
our
key.
lives
Yeah.
because of social media.
Yeah. That could very well make the difference, man. I mean, the awareness is where it began. You have to know, right? You have to know before you can react, right? And so this digital age that we're living in, and I know there was, word of mouth back then, and there were information that was processed and passed on. But I do believe that this current time that we're living in, with the information, the way we can transfer information, I believe that, there's a greater hope that lies ahead for some change to actually occur. Give you guys the last opportunity to say something before we go into this. Anything that you like more that you like to say?
Do we want to go around or I can start?
No pressure.
I just want to say that when you first started off the segment, I still believe in hope.
Yeah.
I still believe in hope. Reverend Jesse Jackson said, "Keep hope alive."
Keep hope alive.
So I still believe in hope. There's hope. So long as God wakes us up every morning, and there's hope, and we know that God is in control.
Yeah.
Regardless of what it is, God is still in control. And what Satan meant for evil, which is racism, God can turn it around and make it good.
It's good word. Good word. Okay, we're going to use that as our closing statement right there. That was a great word right there. And I want to thank you, gentlemen, for taking out the time to share some of your inner reports, right? You guys said a lot of wise things, and thank you for opening up and just being so candid, and sharing those things with us. And at this point, I'm going to turn it back over into the hands of our pastor, Pastor Byron Thompson, and we'd like to thank him for allowing us to have this platform where we can unload some of our baggage and some of the things that we're looking for. So, Pastor Byron.
Amen. Let's give Deacon Moore a hand for moderating. Let's give all of our panelists. I'm going to ask all of our panelists to come up. All of our panelists, everyone stand. All of our panelists, thank you. Thank all of you all for your time and certainly for your wisdom and I want everybody to get in the shot. Let's get a Spider Mike. Oh, okay, Deacon, Minister Corey, he's got it. I want to thank all of you all for your words of wisdom and sharing your feelings and unpacking the trauma of this thing that all of us as African American men live through on a daily basis. No one really knows the pressure of what it is to be an African American man. No one knows that we wake up every morning with the weight of the world on our shoulders. And we leave our homes heading to our jobs, and we all pray that we get back. It's not a guarantee. We have a 50-50 chance of making it back home every time we leave out our homes. And if you're Breonna Taylor or if you're that young man in Texas, you can be in your own home and the police will just arbitrarily just take your life. And so I want the world to see these African American men. All of them are in some way professional men, successful men. They've raised families. They work good careers. We have men who served in the Army. A couple of brothers served in the Navy. One brother served in Air Force. These men have had varying positions. One of our brothers is working for one of the largest transit companies in the area. A couple of our brothers work in major manufacturing plants where they are boss type kind of guys. And so we just want the world to see that when the police pulls us over, he's not pulling over someone that's trash or garbage or insignificant, but he's pulling over men who have families, professional careers, who has friends and parents who want to see them come home. That we're not scum, we're not dirt bags, we're not thugs, whatever that means. We're not degenerates, we're not excrements, but we are men. All of us are men. We are men. And thankful to God that he's given us a platform that as the tide changes, because nothing stays the same, as the tide changes, this will represent our mark in history, that we had something to say, that we just didn't lay down and just let the wave wash us over, but we swam against the current. And we don't know what's going to happen when we walk out this door. We don't know what trap has been set for us, but we are on record as standing up that we are against racism. We're against marginalization. We're against being treated unequally, unfairly. And we're going to continue to have this discussion. So we want to thank all of you all that have tuned in today. And as a show of solidarity, not only are we black men, but we're God-fearing men. And we want to close this out with a corporate prayer as all of us men pray to our one God, whose name is Jesus, that he will continue to lead and guide us. So if you're home, why don't you just take a moment and bow your heads with us as these men pray to God, and we want you to pray with us. Most righteous and kind God, we thank you once again for all your many blessings. We thank you for your love, your kindness. We thank you for your wisdom, your intellect. We thank you for each and every one of these brothers that have taken out time of their busy schedule to lay a record in the archives that they stood against injustice, they stood against racism, and that they are God-fearing and God-loving men that love their family and love life and love good things. And God, we pray that you would bless each and every one of these brothers as they go back to their different destination, as they go to their jobs. Let their lights continue to shine, even with heavy hearts and with the weight of the world on them, oh God. You have built them for this, and you have made them to be a light in darkness. And God, we pray for every family that's represented and every family that's online watching. We pray, God, even right now that you would bless us and bring that great day of justice. God, what we seek more than anything is justice, because you're the God of justice. And when you have set up justice, we will all be able to say that finally we are equal. And God, we pray that this tide of racism changes and it works for our good, oh God. We pray right now that businesses will recognize what's happening and make a change. We pray for the hearts of those that are in power. And what needs to happen, God, is a heart transplant. But you are a heart fixer. You fix hearts. And God, we thank you right now that you're fixing the world's heart and that justice will prevail. Now, God, bless us as we leave from this place, but never from your presence. In the matchless name of Jesus, we pray. And everyone said, amen. All right, God bless y'all. We love y'all. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Take care. The Knights of the Round Table. God bless you. Bye-bye.